Hi, I'm Andre. I'm a co-founder in Catch a Deal. Being a Tech in Asia subscriber feels like as if you're going back to a community. It actually will expose them to the industry standards, get to know more people, and then get out there more. Yeah, I encourage them to subscribe into Tech in Asia.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining Tech in Asia and C for rewriting the rules of user engagement with Shopee and Garena. We've worked with the teams at Shopee and Garena to line up an exciting and informative afternoon for you. But before we begin, my name is Andrew Baisley. I run Tech in Asia Studios, the multimedia arm of Tech in Asia. We create content and events just like this one to help connect and inform the Tech in Asia audience. A few housekeeping items. Please feel free to chat. I see a number of you are, and connect with fellow attendees. We'll also be leaving plenty of time today for Q&A. So if you have questions at any time during the presentations, please put those in the question tab. You can also vote on other people's questions. So make sure you check that out. We're here today to discuss a very important topic, and that's user engagement. And who better than leading global consumer internet company committed to bettering lives through technology. C operates 3 core businesses across digital entertainment, e-commerce, and financial services: Garena, Shopee, and C-Money, respectively. Shopee is the leading e-commerce platform in Southeast Asia and Taiwan. It's designed to be mobile-first and highly social. Shopee offers buyers and sellers a trusted and enjoyable shopping experience through integrated payments and logistical support, as well as popular entertainment features tailored for each market that it operates in. Garena is a leading global online games developer and publisher. It's also the developer of Free Fire, a global smash hit mobile battle royale game, which was the world's most downloaded game in 2019. Wow. First up, I'm really excited to introduce you all to Zhang Nan. John is the product lead for search and recommendations at Shopee. His team connects users to what they may want at scale. Their products enable more than 10 million users to find things that are relevant and interesting among over 1 billion products and content available on the Shopee platform. He's passionate about building products that are powered by AI and big data. John will spend the next few minutes showing you how Shopee's e-commerce recommendation engine works from the inside out. After that, we'll hear from Omar Iqbal at Garena, and then we'll take your questions. John, take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm Zhong Nan. Many thanks to Andrew's introduction just now. I do search and recommendation on Shopee, and I have been working in related areas for many years. So recommendation is definitely a fascinating topic, and I'm very happy to share about it with you today. For sure, there's something interesting for you. For simplicity, I will avoid any technical jargon or math formulas. So you will have the chance to see how recommendation works inside out without any previous knowledge. Let's get started with what is recommendation. So we all make all kinds of decisions every day, whether it's about a job offer to accept or simply a juice to choose from the shelf. Sometimes we know for certain what we want, but many times we don't. Maybe there are so many options that make us ambivalent. Maybe they are just simply too lazy to think. In any case, recommendation comes to rescue. It helps us to make better or quicker decisions. It could be coming from family, friends, experts, sales personnel, or other people facing the same decisions. And recommendation engines try to automate this process for everyone, everywhere. So recommendation has a big use on the internet. It's ubiquitous. Actually, great recommendation is at the core of some of the most successful services people use. As we're living in a world of information overload, economy of abundance, and a fast-paced society, recommendations are a simple and user-friendly way to help users to deal with the many decisions they need to make online. For example, in social media like Facebook, it recommends you in your newsfeed about updates from your social circles and content from different media outlets. They may also suggest to you people you may know. In TikTok or YouTube, it automatically recommends you the next video after you finish watching the current one. Similarly, in video and music streaming services like Netflix and Spotify, they try to recommend you the movies to watch or music to listen to. Even the app stores, they will try to tell you which app to download through their top charts or suggested topics. Of course, e-commerce is no different. Recommendation has a wide range of important applications in this sector. At Shopee, we use recommendation to connect users to what they may want to scale. As Andrew introduced about our team, we enable more than 200 million users in Southeast Asia, Taiwan, and Brazil to discover things relevant and interesting in more than 1 billion product and content available at Shopee in all kinds of forms. It could be an item to buy, it could be a shop to follow, a product video or live stream to watch, a feast to read, or a voucher to use, and many, many more. So here I want to look at a few features for you as an example. On the left is Daily Discover, which is located at the bottom of the homepage of the app. It intends to allow users to discover products, collections, ranking lists, and more forms that are new to them. In the middle is what we call trending search. It shows the hottest search queries people use across the platform. It offers a way to inspire users of what other people might be looking for and they might be interested in. Finally, on the right is similar products. It is displayed below the detail page of any product listing. It offers a shortcut for users to find similar items of better price or quality. So you may wonder, how does it work? So let's look at it conceptually first. Simply put, recommendation engines pumping information about user item interaction, and give out predictions on user preference over items, so that the users might find it relevant and interesting and be satisfied and delighted. The user on the top left is a target for whom we want to recommend for. The information can be anything range from demographics such as age, gender, and self-reported interest, or tracked information such as locations or type of phones and extra. In this example here, we have a female who's in the age of 25 to 35 and is self-reported to be a newbie mummy because she perhaps joined the Mummies Club, which is one of our most popular loyalty program in Singapore. Next, in the middle, item. Item is a generalized concept for things we want to recommend. At Shopee, it's often a product listing that is available in our marketplace. In a sense, the same technology can be applied to other forms such as video and messages. Here we know that this particular product is a diaper. It belongs to the category of baby products. Finally, on the bottom is a user item interaction. This is a record of the behavior user takes with items. It might be browse, click, or add things to shopping cart, bookmark with like, a chat with the seller about items, or any other kind of form. Here, we have seen that these users are browsing this item, baby diaper product and other baby-related product often. Note that all this information here are anonymized to protect the user privacy. Actually, in most use cases of e-commerce, the recommendation engines do not need to know much about who the user is to give them good recommendations. So all of these information is pumped into the engine. Now we're able to predict that, if you look at on the right, the user might be very interested in baby feeding products like milk bottles. toys, pacifiers. At the same time, the user might be interested in dresses and high heel shoes as well. So that's conceptually how it works. Now, we will talk about 3 specific approaches to recommendation and how it works under the hood: popularity-based, content-based, and collaborative filtering. First is popularity-based recommendation. It's perhaps the simplest form of recommendation you can do. The recommendation engine records what everyone is interested in, make a ranking list of the hottest for everybody, and show it to everyone. This approach is commonly seen in forms like music billboards, movie rankings, and an example of that at Shopee is what we have just introduced just now, the trending searches. Note that a variant of this approach is what we call recency-based, for things like buy it again or continue watching, where instead of checking what others are looking for, the engine simply recommends what the user was looking for previously and recommends you again. Surprisingly, this approach works quite okay in a lot of cases. The pros of it is that it's simple and universally understandable. Users don't need to be educated about what this thing is. The cons, of course, are there's no personalization. Everybody sees the same thing. The choice of items are limited, and the things the majority of people are interested in might not be relevant to a particular user. So now we move to the next method, which is what we call content-based recommendation. Here, we build domain-specific models of the content of item. Content is basically attributes that make sense in understanding what an item is. In e-commerce, it could be brand, category, and application attributes. For example, if we're talking about cosmetics, then it could be skin type, applicable age groups, and country of origin. An example for this kind of recommendation is a similar product, where we build models based on these metrics and these attributes, and are trying to find things that are similar to the item that the user is browsing right now and recommend it to them. The pros of this method is that it's very transparent, it's very easy to understand, and it's independent of the users. So we don't need to know who the user is. We just need to know what the content and the item is. And of course, in most use cases, people know much about the item because they run a certain marketplace and they sort of control the supply. So they would know more about the items compared they know about the users. So here we can actually do very good recommendation if we know a few things about users' preference about items, and we are able to recommend to them. But the cons are that you need certain expertise to know what dimensions or attributes make sense to model the content. For example, cosmetic use case, it makes sense to look at the origin of a product, like is it from Korea or Japan, but it may not be very useful to check where the product is packaged. But you need experts to tell you, okay, here are the dimensions that make sense. And you need to do that for all kinds of categories. Besides the dimension issue, you also need a lot of effort to collect and curate the data. In machine learning, we say garbage in, garbage out. If the data is insufficient or poor, we may not expect a good performance of the engine. And then in reality, it's actually a lot of effort. Talk about Shopee, we have 1 billion products and content available in our platform, and it's very, very hard to ensure all of them are of high quality. And that's indeed a challenge in our everyday work. Finally, this approach lacks exploration and fails to offer enough new things. As you imagine that we only find things that are similar, and it's static. it is unable to adapt to people's usually evolving tastes. So that brings us to the last and the most powerful method, collaborative filtering. This approach tries to find hidden similarities in user item interactions and utilize these similarities for recommendation. For example, if you have two users, A and B, they have browsed the same items, and then we can say, oh, they are similar because they demonstrate similar pattern of behaviors. Then, if there is an item browsed only by user A on the left, but not seen by user B on the right yet, then there is a chance that B may like it too, because they tend to agree. The people who agrees in the past tend to agree in the future. So we may recommend this item to user B. And if we repeat this process for millions of users and items, we're able to recommend for many users many more things that they haven't seen themselves before. So, in a way, the users collaboratively filter out what is interesting for each other. An example of that is Shopee's Daily Discover, as most recommendation engines we mentioned previously use this approach as well. The pros of this approach is that it's a great predictive power. It enables people to discover things, and it needs little information on user or item themselves. It can function entirely based on user item interactions. But the cons is that it really requires a large amount of data to function. Also, it lacks any sort of explainability, because by nature, it tries to find the hidden similarities. And most of the time, humans are unable to interpret it. So in practice, for these three approaches, people usually use a hybrid of them. And also there are other new approaches such as social recommendation and the contextual recommendation. And there are many very complex mathematical and statistical theories and engineering efforts behind most approaches to make it work at a scale at real-world application. So after talking about these three approaches, I'll share with you some challenges that we face in real-world applications. We will share three things here. One, user feedback. Second, cold start. And third, Matthew effect. On user feedback, getting systematic and reliable user feedback is very hard for recommendation. For any product, user feedback is vital. But for recommendation, how do we get feedback when everyone sees everything differently? How do we know something is wrong for a lot of users instead of just someone getting unlucky? Of course, we can still do the traditional focus groups, but we have to rely more on implicit and quantitative feedback. This way, we can only judge users by if they're doing more of the behaviors we encourage them to do, such as buying more things on Shopee or spending more time. And we measure these behaviors via metrics such as click-through rate. We also conduct a large-scale A/B testing where we launch 2 versions of the app at the same time and randomly choose user to see one version versus another and to see if the metrics is moving towards the right direction that we want. The second issue is cold start. Cold start is just a name for starting a system with little or none information. This is a case that when you have a new system, like a new platform or a new user. In e-commerce, this happens a lot. We have so many sellers and buyers join our platform and then upload new listings every day. How could we bootstrap the system? The answer goes, get more data or develop better algorithm. One thing we can do is preference elicitation, which is to ask a user to give us data, or we can hire vendors to help to label data for us. And then there's also other way like engage with third-party services, which may provide us some initial information about user, such as social network. And that's why Facebook login is very popular. On the algorithm front, you can, of course, use a popularity-based and content-based approaches, which in its nature require less data to function, to get started. And in collaborative filtering, there are fancier math and engineering behind it to do better than just random guesses. Finally, the Matthew effect, which is named after Matthew's apostles. We don't need to recall the quote from the Bible here. It's simply the effect that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. If some items are liked by someone, they get more exposure from recommender system, and they're more likely to liked by others, and then get more exposure, and the cycle goes on. These limits are the item's chance of being discovered. So how do we break the positive feedback loop or echo chamber here? This one boils down to a strategy rather than a solution. There's no black and white, right or wrong here. As for Shopee, at the end of the day, we don't want to be a marketplace where it's only open for a few set of incumbent sellers or small portion of items that have opportunities. We want it to be open and sufficiently compete that is eventually good for the buyers. So we need to balance between efficiency and equality. Thus, we measure the Gini coefficient like a country does for its citizens' income. We set rules to promote diversity, like how different these recommendations are among themselves. Serendipity, how new the recommendation are to the users. And coverage, how many sellers and items are being discovered. And we introduce randomization to the system. We give different items equal opportunity and let them race for a while, and many more other mechanisms to ensure people have equal chances of being discovered. Okay, so we're at the end of the talk today. We talked about what recommendation is with different examples. We introduced how recommendation works in general and its three main approaches conceptually. And we talked about three challenges we face. I'm happy to answer your questions later. And as a blatant advertisement here, if you want to join us building great recommendation engines, you can scan this QR code to go to our career site and search for recommendation. Back to Andrew.
Thanks so much, John. This is so fascinating. I definitely have a long list of questions that I wrote down here that I hope I get the opportunity to ask you. As a reminder to our audience, if you have any questions, please jump over to the question tab next to the chat and put those there. Next up, we're going to talk to Omar Iqbal. Omar is the engineering lead for Booyah Live. It's a new game live streaming platform launched by Garena. Since launching in January of 2020, so very recently, Booyah has grown rapidly and serves millions of gamers daily today. Omar's team is responsible for developing exciting new features and ensuring that the platform can scale with that incredible rapid growth. He's very passionate about media technology, and you probably won't be able to get him to stop talking about video codecs, streaming protocols, GPUs, compilers. I'm really excited about this. We're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about how live streaming and entertainment product features can drive user engagement. Omar, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to my talk, and thanks a lot for being here. I know it's a weekday, and some of you are probably working from home, so I really appreciate everyone being here. So I'm going to talk about Booyah Live, and I'm going to talk about live streaming. Before I talk about Booyah and how Garena got into this live streaming segment and why it's so exciting, let me just give a brief introduction to myself first. So I'm Omar. A long time ago, 100 years ago, this photo was taken. This is before the era of social distancing. That's why we can be so close together. And this was a Christmas celebration. So as you can see, I was enjoying a bit of fermented grape juice. Garena has a fun culture. That's what I'm trying to highlight here. So if you want to join us, yeah, we are always hiring for new and talented people. But anyways, coming back on track. Before I talk about live streaming, I'm going to talk a bit about Free Fire. So Andrew gave a pretty good introduction to Free Fire, but let me introduce Free Fire a bit more. Those of you who may not have played the game or are familiar with it. So Free Fire is a battle royale game. It was developed around 2017. It was launched around 2017. And Free Fire, I mean, if you're not familiar with battle royale games like PUBG, Fortnite, etc., the concept essentially is something like Hunger Games, but imagine Hunger Games, the drama of Hunger Games in 15 minutes, where you are thrown someplace on some island and you've got to pick up weapons and basically fight to survive. It's a very popular game genre. The problem with this kind of game genre is that it's usually very computationally expensive to run this kind of game, because you have a kind of shooter, three-dimensional 3D shooting game mechanic, which takes a lot of processing and GPU power. So a lot of phones won't be able to. You need a fairly high-spec phone to be able to run these kind of games. So one strategy that Free Fire adopted from the very, very beginning, and it's something, and this is a strategy that has inspired other products in Garena as well, is that we have to target as large a demographic as possible. So what that means is we want to support as many users as possible. So we build the game with performance in mind from the start. So that means that we may sacrifice a bit on, let's say, the graphic quality, for example. We may not have very super high-res textures, but we trade off that with the benefit that everyone can play the game. So no matter how old your Android device is, you should be able to play Free Fire. This strategy has worked really well. So in the last year, let me show you guys some numbers. We reached a record of 80 million peak daily active users for Free Fire. This is pretty insane. It was the most downloaded app on Google Play Store, I believe, last year. And I mean, these users are not just, I mean, they're really passionate about the game because they're actually spending money in the game. So a large number of these users are paying users that will actually pay money to buy items in the game because they are so invested in this game. They really, really love this game and its culture, and participating and playing this game with their friends every day. So in India, for instance, in April, 10% of users from the monthly active users were actually paying users. So given the rapid rise of Free Fire and how well it's done, we in Garena saw that there's a demand for video content for Free Fire. So people enjoy watching Free Fire tournaments. People enjoy watching skilled Free Fire players and want to skill themselves up also in the process. So in order to meet that demand, we came up with Booyah. So Booyah. Booyah is actually a video content platform for Free Fire, mainly targeted at Free Fire gamers. So the name itself, Booyah, is actually a concept from Free Fire. So when you win a Free Fire game, actually the term they use is Booyah, which is basically means that you won the game. So it has players of Free Fire can relate to the name quite well. And in our app, basically they can do a number of things. So one of the things that they can obviously do is they can watch their favorite live streamers and streaming, and they can interact with the streamers using chat or in several other ways. But what they can also do, which this is slightly magical, is they can also stream directly from their phone. So that means they can broadcast. They can broadcast themselves playing Free Fire from their phone to thousands of users, or even hundreds of thousands of users, without doing anything else, without needing any special equipment whatsoever. And this is something that we have built for them. And the reason, traditionally for live streaming, what you normally have is you need to have some expensive equipment. You need at least a PC normally, running OBS or some specialized software, which is fairly complex to use. We want to make this as easy as possible because we realize that, with over time, live streaming has really become an industry of its own. People actually earn money through streaming, and this is one of the things that they can do through our platform as well. Gamers who are really passionate about gaming, they can actually join our streamer programs, and if they satisfy some criteria, they can actually earn money from our platform also, and broadcast to thousands of users who watch them. So that's a bit about Booyah. So we launched very recently. We launched in January of this year only. It's only been 6 months. And our focus so far has been on Brazil, Latin America, India, and Middle East. These, if you notice, are markets where Free Fire is pretty dominant. And by July, so this is just this month's statistics, our daily active users is around 1.8 million. So 1.8 million people daily use our app. Our peak monthly active users, so in one month we reach around 8.7 million. This was last month because we've been growing quite fast. And our largest event we had it in the beginning of this month also. We got around 220,000 users on one stream. It was like a tournament stream basically in Brazil. So so far the growth has been pretty good, and we're pretty happy with the growth so far. But we have a long way to go. We just got started on this. And I mean, we are entering a fairly crowded landscape. This is not live streaming is a pretty saturated market. So there's lots of big names out there, like Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, Facebook, Nemo. So all these guys are out there. But one advantage that we as Garena have in this product is that we can do the kind of integrations with the game that these guys can't, because we also own the game. And that's one of the best things about Booyah, because we integrate directly with the game. So one example of this that we do, for example, is when you play Free Fire, or when you live stream Free Fire, we automatically generate highlights for you, for example. This is so when you're streaming, you might stream for hours, but you only are interested in certain highlight moments of the game. For example, when you win a match, or you kill someone, for example, or you loot some item, we can automatically detect these events from the game, and then we will create a short video of those events for you, for example. This is one of the features that we can do because we are also on the game. Okay, so another thing I want to showcase here is that the live streaming market is not a zero-sum game, because it's actually the pie itself is expanding quite a lot. And I'll use Twitch as an example here, because Twitch is one of the early people who started live streaming, game live streaming, that is. If you notice, if you look at Twitch is CCU chart, you can see the market size itself has been expanding over time, and this is partly due to better internet access. People are more comfortable doing live streams, consuming live streams. And the culture behind live streams is growing, especially behind game live streams. So talking about all this, there is a lot of challenges that a live streaming platform needs to deal with in order to just be able to serve the basic functionality, because live streaming is a fairly complicated technical challenge by itself. So one of the biggest things, and this is something that excites me quite a lot, because I'm a geeky engineer, so is that how do you deal with network challenge, network instability, right? So networks are fundamentally unstable, especially in developing countries, right? So our markets in Brazil, India, Middle East, these are not places known for good internet like Singapore is, right? So how do you make sure that people can reliably watch a video without constant rebuffering, etc., and smoothly? This is the biggest challenge that we have. Also, some other challenges that we also have are things like our platform is a global platform, so we need to make sure that it works well everywhere. How do we deliver content smoothly throughout the world? Also, how do we respond to sudden traffic peaks? Normally, like let's say a streamer suddenly goes online, without telling us, obviously, because they don't need to really tell us, and becomes viral. Suddenly, he has hundreds of thousands of people watching the stream. This is a lot of traffic. So how can we deal with a peak like this without flooding, the ISP, without having so many packet drops, without the video quality suffering? This is one of the technical challenges that personally excites me a lot, and is one of the things that we're dealing with. And I'll talk a bit about this in this talk. Okay, so we're going to talk a bit about the architecture in general. So those of you who are engineers might find this interesting. Those of you who are not engineers, I hope this will just give you a brief idea of how such a product usually works under the hood. So normally for Booyah, the way it works is you will have some streamer. You can see this is a streamer on the left. The streamer will basically push an RTMP stream to our ingest service. So RTMP is a protocol used commonly for live streaming. It's a TCP-based protocol that is quite popular in the market. It was developed by Adobe a long time ago, back in the Flash days, and it's a standard market thing for live streaming, basically. So you will live stream to our ingest service. Our ingest service basically, so we have these ingest servers that are located all around the world in our key markets. So we have ingest servers in Brazil, in India, et cetera, et cetera. So these guys will take your stream in, and they will repackage the stream basically to make it better for delivery. So to deliver it to users, we use a different protocol. It's called HLS. HLS stands for HTTP live streaming. It's a very, very simple protocol based on HTTP. And it's the best part about HLS is that it's very scalable. So CDNs really, really love this protocol. And I'll talk a bit about CDNs in later. There's a lot of alphabetic jargon over here, so forgive me, but I'll cover them slowly one by one, okay? So just keep in mind, CDNs love HLS, so we use HLS for delivery, okay? Talk more about this in a bit. And we also have this thing called transcoding, and I'll talk about this later also, where we need to convert the stream to different variants so that people can actually play it without stuttering. Okay, so talk a bit more about ingest, right? So ingest is the ability to when you take and stream inside your system. How does that work? So one of the things when we're doing stream ingest is that when you are pushing a stream to our service, your network can vary, right? So let's say you're pushing the stream and suddenly something else happens and the network quality goes bad. This could be maybe due to your IDC suddenly has peak load because everyone is watching their favorite show on Netflix at the same time or something. So your ISP is dropping packets like crazy. So how can we adapt? What can we do in this kind of situation? So what we do normally is we will dynamically adapt the stream bitrate. So we'll change the stream quality a bit, reduce the quality a bit dynamically based on your network situation so that the stream will still go on. The quality will degrade a bit, but your stream will not be interrupted, basically. The other thing that we obviously do is we deploy our ingest servers as close as possible to our users so that the chances of this instability happening are lower because international links in the internet are usually more unstable. Local links are usually a bit more stable. Also, one very, very important thing, and this is something we've spent a lot of time on, is we do not want the gameplay to suck when you're live streaming, right? So because when you're live streaming, you don't want the gameplay to be bad, right? You want to play Free Fire without having frame drops, without this game lagging or anything. So this is something that we spent a long time at to optimize our streaming stacks enough that your gameplay is not interrupted. And for most decent devices, this will not usually happen. So especially, and usually this is something that we can control to quite an extent. Okay. So now I'm going to talk a bit more about transcoding. So this is a common thing in many live streaming platforms. So transcoding basically means that you have a source stream. This source stream might be very high resolution, like 1080p, for example, but not everyone has the bandwidth to watch 1080p, right? So if you're in India on a cellular connection and you're only getting 2 bars, you can't watch 1080p video, right? So you will probably need to watch a lower resolution variant of it. And this is something that we provide. So especially for our top streamers. So we will provide automatic transcoding of your stream in our platform. And this is quite a complicated thing because this is actually quite computationally expensive. So we actually need some dedicated hardware to do this. And we have some specialized GPU servers that actually will do this transcoding for us. So lastly, I talked a bit about CDN earlier on. So CDNs are key, very, very key to serving content, video content in any live streaming platform. Okay, so CDN stands for Content Delivery Network. So usually CDNs, the way CDNs work is CDNs have many different smaller edge servers that are spread throughout the globe. Okay, so if you look at big CDN companies like Akamai, for example, they have thousands of servers that are spread throughout the world. And what happens is that when you request for some video content, like for example, it's some video file from YouTube or whatever, or it's a Booyah live stream, for example, what will happen is you will talk to some an edge server that's actually close to you. So we're in Singapore, for example, the IS server might be in Singapore, for example. And this edge server will then get the data. If it doesn't have the data already, it will actually get the data via the CDN network from an origin server that is provided by us, okay? So we provide the origin server, and the CDN will fetch the resources from origin server from us, okay? The thing that makes this really efficient is caching, because most video content can be cached quite well. So the CDNs will cache the video content, and this makes sure that the requests to our origin is not that many. So basically that means even if there are a few hundreds of thousands of users watching that stream, the traffic that will not all of the traffic will not go to our origin. Most of it will stay at the edges because most of the video content will be cached. And this is something that CDNs provide to us, and this is a very key part of building a live streaming platform. And for us, because we are distributed globally and we have several different key markets, and even within markets, what we do is we actually use different CDNs. So we actually have a multi-CDN strategy where we will use the best CDN based on where your user is and where he's requesting from. We try to find the best CDN that can serve the user. Okay. So so all of these things that I talk about, these are just the very, very fundamental basics you need to get a live stream product up and running from a technical point of view. But this is just the beginning, because for a live streaming product to work, you can't just make it work by just serving the video correctly. That's just the basics. You also need a lot of other features to get users to use your platform and stay and retain those users. So for us, many of these features include things like gamification, include things like a lot of features with Free Fire and a lot of events with Free Fire, rewards, giving users rewards in Free Fire when they do certain activities inside our app, etc., etc. We have a lot of features like these, and these features are basically what give you an edge with respect to other streaming platforms. So given that brings me towards the end. So I'm looking forward to the questions you guys have, and let's just go straight to the Q&A. Yeah. So thanks a lot, guys.
Really awesome. Thank you so much to both of our presenters, and I think we'll bring Jongnan back on stage as well. Yeah, thank you guys. Really insightful presentations. I know that I learned a lot, and there's lots of questions from our audience. So I think, Omar, as you said, let's just jump right into those. I'm going to look through. I'm just going to start with the most voted question here from Kelvin. So Kelvin asked, and I want to contextualize this a little bit to the topic at hand, which is customer engagement, kind of rewriting the rules around customer engagement. But obviously, you're a younger platform in the market, and your growth, I think, is really astonishing to Kelvin and anyone who's watching what's going on in the Shopee business front. So, I mean, are there things that you feel like you guys are doing that are fundamentally different in terms of user engagement that might be contributing to that growth?
I'll try to take a stab on this. Right. First, I would avoid commenting on a particular competitor. I would say we have a lot of great competitors, and some of whom have longer experience, deeper pocket, more local connections, and even better technology than us. And I don't think we do things fundamentally different to them. E-commerce is a very mature thing. If there's anything that you would say that we try to do differently in user engagement, is actually we try to be more nimble and more humble. We perhaps make fewer mistakes in doing this, right? We assume there's no right way of doing e-commerce. Just because it works elsewhere, it must work here. We try to, try things in an open mind and listen to our customers' feedback on what works for them, what doesn't, more, and we act quicker and execute the decisions from the management more full-heartedly, we're just having the advantage of being the smaller player in this journey, I think.
Yeah, got it. I think there's definitely, we feel this at Tech in Asia too, that there's some advantage in being a bit nimble in the market and being able to move quickly. Omar, I wanted to ask you, there's another question from the same person, Kelvin, on the percentage of live streams that are non-Free Fire content. Yeah. I know there's like the today's state and then maybe what you see coming in the future.
Right. So that's a really good question, because actually something that we're working on right now, I was just working on this a little while back. So basically for Booyah, the strategy is, so we start with Free Fire content, but we're gradually bringing in more content. So the platform itself is not really tied that much to Free Fire. So it does work the other kinds of content. And we are gradually introducing some more different kinds of content also. So currently it's majority Free Fire, but there are obviously long-term plans. to include other kinds of content like real life content, like stage content, like even content where streamers just talk to the audience. That this has been a pretty popular thing in Twitch, for example. So this is something that we're definitely considering. But currently, as of right now, it's still free fire centric. I hope that answers the question.
It does. Do you think there's some future where maybe there's, I know that live streaming e-commerce is a trend. Maybe there's some collaboration opportunity here.
Yeah, definitely. So we actually have been in contact with the Shopee live streaming team. The Shopee has its own live streaming platform also. And there have been, we are in contact with them, and we do share strategies, and we do share technical domain knowledge.
Awesome.
And we do recommendation for live streaming as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, cool. Very nice. So Peng Tai Su asks something I think we've all experienced in as e-commerce has evolved. I know in the world of cookies, we all get chased by retargeting, and that can be sometimes a frustrating experience. But within the Shopee platform, how do you manage the freshness of recommendations and making sure that you're balancing showing people something that they really want to buy versus something maybe they've just bought?
Yeah, I think this is actually a very key question. This is a problem that we know, and we have been trying to solve it for a really long time. It hinges on some actually technical challenges, right? Because you have already purchased an item, and it doesn't make sense to recommend you the same item again, right? So there are two problems that I want to elaborate on here. One is that you first need to differentiate the item itself. We have many sellers selling the same item, right? So we need to say, okay, you have bought a phone. How do we know that these other listings from the other sellers are phones as well? And this is what we call the name entity recognition. And it needs to be done at a very scalable way. And this is something that we are constantly working on. And the second thing is cache, as Amir talked about it in the peak traffic issue and the CDN. Right, cache is essentially a technique to remember the choice that you had previously and to save the load onto our server. And Shopee also has tens of millions of users every day. And so we use cache extensively to remember, okay, what are things we recommend to you? And so we don't have to put the load to our server to calculate it again for you. And it's very, very expensive. Some of these recommendation technologies, such as deep learning, is very, very expensive computation-wise. And then this creates a problem that, okay, when you take a new action, we need to know when to do a cache force update. It's very challenging technologically, and this is something that our engineers are working on as well. But we do agree that this is a problem, and we know it, and we want to solve it. Yeah.
Do you think that the problem is more of a user experience, like maybe it's somewhat annoying to people, or is the bigger issue that it's sort of a missed opportunity for you to recommend something that may be like a new purchase opportunity for you?
I think both, right? So I think in this particular case where you have bought something, and especially you bought it in Shopee, then it doesn't make sense at all. The signal is very clear, right? So we miss the opportunity of recommend you something new, and it's annoying to you. But there are also cases where the user actually have converted elsewhere, right? They have bought it offline or bought on a competitor's site, which we don't know. And this is something where, it's annoying to the user, but there's nothing we can do about it.
Got it. Yeah, very interesting problem. Okay, I'm going to use a moderator privilege and ask one of my own questions, and we'll go back to the viewers' questions, because I'm just very curious. Omar, if I understand, when you're thinking about customer engagement, that there's a lot of levers to pull and different things that you can do. And some of those are like product-centric features. So they could be things like chat or gifting or other things that I imagine are really sticky for Booyah. And then there's other things that are kind of core deliverables, which are like high quality streaming. If you were forced to choose between really stable, high quality video streams for all of your users versus sticky product features, how would you think about that?
So I think that's a really good question, because that's a debate we always have with our project managers. So because I'm a tech guy, so I'm always on the side of, okay, I want to make the engineering as good as possible and as stable as possible. And then the product managers are always like, okay, no, we need to make everything as sticky as possible. We need more and more features, and we need them ASAP as soon as possible. So this is it's a trade-off that we have to make. So at the end of the day, and usually the way we do this trade-off is we try to do it in a sort of scientific way. So what we'll do is we'll do some focus group studies, and we'll try to see that. So we try to survey users to understand how big. So for live streaming, for example, our video quality, we'll try to see how big of a problem really is it versus us having new features. Because at the end of the day, it's just opportunity cost, right? So it's a trade-off that you have to make. So we try to do this in a kind of data-driven way where we can make the best decision for our target audience that fulfills our KPI. Now, our main KPI right now is DAU, basically. So we want to grow as fast as possible. So we try to see which approach is going to lead us to more growth. Is it going to be more features, or is it going to be a more stable and successful technology stack? So for example, and this decision can vary in different regions also. So for example, in some regions, our core video stack may not be performing very well, and that might be affecting our DAU, for example. So we'll focus on that problem in that region. But in general, if we feel that new feature will definitely bring in a lot more audience, we'll prioritize that first, and we'll schedule the optimization stuff later on.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, like identify where your highest cost problems are, and kind of align your resources to that.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to jump down to a question by Farheen Nori, who asked, I think it's for Zhang, what technology do you use to build recommendation models? Is it in-house, or are you using some AWS or Google technologies like Personalize?
We first do most of the things in-house, although our infrastructure have I would say a large part use some of the cloud technology providers, but most of the things that we do are built in-house. And on the particular models that we use, there are many different models, such as matrix factorization and neural networks and even deep learning. For example, in daily discovery itself, we use something called factorization machine. Essentially, you just model the user's preference of item as a matrix, and then you try to decompose the matrix into different matrices, and then you try to find the hidden similarities over there. In deep learning, we use embeddings, of course, to represent items and users, and then they can be put into one space to, find the distance between them, and to say if I should I recommend this particular item to user. And some popular network structures, things like LSMT, long-term short-term memory, and wet and deep, which is popularized by Google. Some of these deep learning structures, and which is very, very computationally expensive, and so the engineers spend a lot of time to make the infrastructure work.
Okay, I think that hopefully is helpful to the person who asked that question. Okay, this is a big question from Dahaner. I apologize if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. I want to just broaden this a little bit, because I think this is applicable to both of you, and I'm sure it's something that you've thought of. But I think gaming is commonly thought of as like a male kind of dominated product, and e-commerce is often thought of as a female-dominated product. I'm curious, just in both of your perspectives, when thinking about product development and customer engagement, does gender play a big role? Like, how do you make sure that your UIs and UXs are, and the data models underneath all of that are considering maybe some of the built-in stereotypes of this data? Is it something that is like a challenge for you guys?
I'll let Jongnan go first.
It's okay.
I know it's a big question, and there's probably not.
Answer. I think I'll start with this way, right? So I'm 100% sure that we try to avoid to have any biases to say, okay, you have to build the product in this way and that way for any particular gender, right? So the problem that you raise is because we build our platform, and then fashion things sell easier, and then we got more female users, and the stereotypical user profile for Shopee is a stay-at-home mom, live somewhere near Jakarta, in the greater Jakarta area, and then they have a lot of time and play around in Shopee, and then they buy a lot of things, and then we know a lot of things about them, and then sort of we give them better recommendation. That's how collaborative filtering works, and that's how the code stack problem we talk about. And then, of course, we realize that, okay, it doesn't work so well for our male users. So what do we do? I think in last year, for the whole year, if you pay attention to Shopee, we launched a pretty big campaign called the male user campaigns, right? We signed the Indonesian national football club and many more male-centric brand ambassadors. We try to acquire more sellers who sell things that male users intrinsically are more interested in, such as electronics. At the recommendation itself specifically, we really look at, okay, can we sort of do gender balancing for the user to make sure that the app doesn't look too female? But of course, we cannot reach out to the user and say, are you male or female, right? That kind of preference elicitation is kind of intrusive. We can only observe by the behaviors and try to, recommend that things more leaning towards male or female. And also in product design wise, I'm not sure many people have noticed that, we really changed the logo and how the app looks to make it less female feeling and to make it a bit more, have a little bit of a more round shape and less circles, make the font a little bit bigger to really make it feel acceptable and harmonious to both genders. And that's what we're trying to do a lot.
Got it. Thanks for tackling that tough question. I think it's an important one.
Yeah.
I don't know, Amar, do you have any thoughts on this? Or one more question?
Yeah, for gaming, this is always a bit tricky because gaming, especially for like battle royale genre, is predominantly usually a male audience. Although to be honest, we don't collect gender information from our users. So to be honest, I don't know. I only have a very rough idea that it's probably majority male. But having said that, we don't really keep gender as a very big decision-making thing when we're doing things like UI design. Usually we'll follow things, interface patterns from the game, for example, or we try our design inspiration usually is from the game, or it will be from whatever inspires our designers. But usually there isn't that much of a gender perspective to it. Usually it's more of a whether it fits the game theme, whether it fits the app's theme or not, and whether it will be attractive, regardless of gender or not. As far as content goes, we actually do have some streamers who would be attractive to female viewers also, and we are hiring like more diverse people. So recently, for example, we hired a streamer in Brazil. He's a very big celebrity called Alok, and he has a very large female audience viewership also because he's a musician as well as being a streamer. So we are trying to, diversify our audience that way, try to bring his fans into Free Fire and bring his fans into the Booyah platform also. So we are trying different approaches to, increase our audience as much as we can.
That's awesome. There's so many other great questions here. I really wish we could get through all of them, but we're just about out of time. So I apologize if your question wasn't answered. But I want to thank you all for joining and everyone who's watching. Thank you to Jung and Omar for generously sharing your experience with all of us. I want to encourage people to learn more about joining C or Garena. You can visit career.cgroup.com. Same with Shopee. If you're, they've got a really dynamic and growing team tackling really challenging problems on all fronts, data to the experience that users have, and that's at careers.shopee.sg. And I think we'll share those links in the chat. Before we go, I also want to just give a quick shout out that Tech in Asia just announced its flagship annual tech conference. It's being held October 19th through the 22nd this year. It'll be a virtual conference for the first time. This year's theme will be Southeast Asia's Golden Decade, 2021 and beyond. We're really looking to look beyond what we're currently all experiencing and into the golden decade that we believe is ahead of us. So I hope that you can join us for that. Full agenda and tickets are at conference.techinasia.com. And very last thing, if you enjoy this event and you want to support quality journalism, I would really encourage you to do that. Please think of subscribing to Tech in Asia Premium. We'll share a link here where you can do that for just $1 for a trial subscription. We've got some great in-depth premium content. Guys, thank you again. I really appreciate your time and all the insight that you gave us here.
Thanks so much. Really happy to share.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.